Alright, howdy. This is our BVI mapping project, story map. So our project focuses on the A&M campus, and it's 1,408 acres, almost 60,000 students, and it's home to a very diverse population of students, and that also includes handicapped students. That ranges from physical, mobile disabilities to vision disabilities. And so for our project, we chose to focus on how we can look at safety around campus and making the lives of visually impaired or blind students a lot easier. And why this is important is because navigating campus is something that we take for granted, because we're able to visually identify the kind of spatial makeup of the campus, but a visually impaired student has to go off of a lot more context, a lot of different clues for figuring out their route, figuring out where they are, and that is always on their mind when they're moving around campus. And so from a safety perspective and kind of just an easier way of life for them, students who are visually impaired, they can trip on the different terrain of the campus, they can twist their ankles, which has happened a few times. They can fall down stairs they're not prepared for, and so it's a real issue that we want to kind of solve in a way by changing our own perspective and trying to find a way to see how with what we take for granted, how can we better visualize the different factors that affect a blind or visually impaired student's life. And so BVI covers a wide range of different disabilities, and so blind students, they do not have vision, but with visually impaired, there are a few very different ways that they're visually impaired. Some people, it can be nearsighted impairment, it could be farsighted. Sometimes, like Hilario's said, there's peripheral differences, so they cannot see what is in front of them, they can see periphery. Some people can't see periphery, they can only see what is directly in front of them. And some people can see random assortment of areas. And so what we've learned from talking to these students is that if they can use their vision in some way, they want to use it. And so by making an app of some sort, even if it can help a blind person with the other features, a visually impaired student could still benefit from some visual assistance so that they can be more independent during their daily life on campus.
Alright, my name's Ty, and I'm going to be going over what we made in our map. So, if you look here, what we've got, this is a 3D map of A&M, and you can see all the buildings, you can see the water tower, you can see George Bush back there, and all these little dots are here, all the different markers that we made. So, you can see we don't have a grid log system, and on the map here, everything looks really perfect. The ground looks smooth, all these lines look just wonderful, like you're gliding on ice. But in reality, it's not. If you've walked around the A&M campus, you know that through age, because our university is ancient, you have these concrete slabs that have come up and these different things that have just made life really difficult. But to us, it's not a huge deal. But to these people that are blind or visually impaired, it can be a huge deal to their success in getting around campus. So you can see here that we tried to map out the different types of things that could come up if you were blind or visually impaired. So things like ground texture, so if the pavement turns into cobblestone or to brick or something like that. Audio features, and so you've heard the AC unit on top of the O&M building is really loud, and you can use that to help figure out where you are. You've got odor features, so the smells, near ground features, and so if you've got a lamp post or a trash can, how that works. And then visual aids, so people who are visually impaired doesn't mean that they're completely blind, so they can see different random things that could use for a visual aid. It took us a long time, 15 hours to document all this stuff, and I want you to imagine I thought that for every single time the pavement switched to cobblestone, like we took a picture of that. It was a blast. So this is the process. So if you were walking through here and you could completely see, like I'm sure you can, this seems really simple. It's just a bridge. There's some wood planks. It's in Spence Park. It's super simple. But if you're blind, this could be a huge obstacle to you to get over. I mean, imagine if it was raining. I mean, you'd be able to hear all the rushing water that goes underneath you. You'd be able to see that the planks underneath you are wet. They're soft to touch. And so all these different things would be so different to you if you were blind. This could be like a huge part of your day, just like you know this bridge, but to us it's just such a simple thing. Yeah. Planks, cracks, you could bump into something. Just like a simple piece of metal in the ground, to us just as easy to pick up your foot. To them, they could mean them falling and twisting an ankle. Yep. So all these things. Yeah.
Hi, howdy. My name's Ilario, and we're going to talk about breaking it down and kind of like conclusions from conducting this, from finding all these different features. So, there's a hidden benefit in this, and that is that through doing this process, each of us three have gained a much better understanding of the blind and visually impaired community. We have become, I know that I can speak for myself when I say that I see campus differently. And I feel like that is a hidden benefit from this. From mapping all these different features, we've determined that what this can do is provide confirmation for when a person may be walking. So if there's a blind or visually impaired person who wants to take a look at our web map and try to use it to navigate, they can observe and know when something's going to happen, just so they can be aware of it, which seems so minor to us, but just knowing that there's going to be this change of cobblestone to concrete several times, and they're just going from Evans Library to Heldenfels, that's important to them. They want to know that. They want to know that there's going to be a brick texture change, because even though they can't feel that, they would like to know ahead of time that to expect it, so they can adjust their cane so their cane doesn't go into their stomach, which they're very used to. And it provides an explanation for their surroundings. So the challenges that we face when doing this is, it can be very broad. A definition of a visual aid feature isn't straightforward, because to one person who can see only through their core and not the periphery, looking at the staircase in front of a building is going to look different to them. So that was difficult to characterize in order to put onto our web map. The sound, just because you can hear a sound from so far away, but at what point does it actually become helpful to you? And there are so many different changes that can happen. As Ty mentioned earlier, the weather can be a change in that if it's raining, or even if it's between classes, because if you're trying to go on a specific route that you're used to, but there's a big crowd of prospective students coming your way, and they can hear that coming, but they don't want to deviate from their true route, but at the same time that's what they're comfortable to. So that's a problem for them. And construction. Our campus is constantly under construction, which, if there's a route that they're used to, they have to deviate from that, and that makes them uncomfortable and can potentially put them at harm's way. So there are several different challenges, and our web map can't account for all of that. But what it does do is it does provide some sort of foundation for how complex our campus is. And it can be used as a basic tool for anybody in the blind and visually aid community in order to recognize where they're going. Especially if they're used to West Campus and they're coming to Central Campus, they can better understand and anticipate what's going to be happening. During this process, we also walked through with students, staff, and faculty and try to and learn from them and what counts for them, what's more important to them, whether there's a sound feature that's more important or whether the ground texture is. And we learned that by far the changing ground texture is the most useful means for understanding where they are in their environment. As far as knowing that to the left of them is Evans Library, because to them it's just a big blob to their left, a big blob to their right. They can't really turn their head and see. And so, future work for this might include making a phone app that can provide these audio instructions to them and to help them better navigate in order to feel more comfortable and be safe while walking through campus. And this is our BVI map presentation.